Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Tamer Matwali. I've got topic 2 for you now, and this is in relation to leadership concepts and theories. So, what we're going to do, part of this topic, is we're going to cover uh, the theories and the concepts that relate to leadership. So, we're going to cover leadership and navigation. We're going to cover leadership theories. We're going to go through the contingency approaches and emotional approaches. So you'll see through slide number 3, leadership and navigation. Now, very important for you as a leader is you need to ensure that you navigate the organization, making sure there's a connection with all the departments, making sure that the HR department is well equipped and able to manage the right people, employ the right people, look after the existing employees, etc., etc., etc. So you as a leader need to ensure the organization itself, as our previous topic, is actually heading in the right direction, and everybody in that different departments is working for the same goal and aiming for the same vision. So that is your duty as a manager or as a leader. Now, in relation to managers and leaders for any organization, you will need both. Okay, so as an organization, you do need managers and you do need leaders. Now, why would you need managers for? Well, managers will obviously they'll plan and they'll organize the resources, they direct, they're making sure that they're achieving, the KPIs. They're actually making sure that they're doing as what's supposed to be doing, etc., etc. Where the leader will be actually providing the vision, they'll be actually able to conduct the strategies to ensure that we actually able to achieve that vision. They're able to inspire and influence, making sure that the motivation level is high and making sure they're fostering growth and development for the organization. That's what really leaders will do for the organization now. Okay. Now, the first theory that we actually going to cover today is called the great man theory. And this great man theory is relating to a theory that leaders are born, not made. Okay. Even though we initially discussed part of our first topic that the majority of leadership scholars agree uh, that leaders are made, not born. But this theory relates to the minority of the scholars who believe that leaders are born and not made. So what we're saying here that the great man is born, and that particular person either being a man or a woman. I know it states a man here, but from great human theory that either being a man or a woman, if they are born with these special genes, yeah, as you might call it, Superman or Superwoman genes, okay, and they are gifted through these genetics, okay, and they are born as leaders. They will become leaders. So that's what the minority of research scholars do believe, and that's why you'll see this is actually based also from a military uh, perspective, that a lot of leaders who go into military, they were born to be in the military, and that's the perspective from that theory. The next one is actually called the trait theory. Now, this theory is actually is a good theory in the sense that scholars state that the traits theorists try to identify leadership characteristics from different perspectives. They focus on psychological attributes such as appearance, weight, height, demographic, age, education. Now, what they're saying is that for you to be a leader, you need to have certain traits. Okay, it's like a boxer. A boxer needs to be certain body size, and he has to be aggressive. Um, so that's where the trait theory is coming from. It's saying that to be a leader, you need to have certain traits. You need to have that certain look about you. Uh, that's where it's coming from. That to be a leader, you need to come from a certain have a certain family status, certain education, making sure that you minimum, for example, bachelor or masters or doctors, etc., etc. So it's looking from that perspective. Okay. Again, majority of the scholars again disagree with that, and I also, from experience, personally, I also disagree with that as well. And it's saying that the next slide talks about some of the trait theories. That these people have to have a great. They got to be a good communicator. They if they're not good communicator, they're not leaders, and so on and so on. So they must have certain characteristics and traits to be leaders. Okay, which, as we said before, that that leader, or to be a good leader, it's actually a science. It can be learned, it can be taught. So this is the perspective or view that I'm actually taking. Now, in also from the next theory, which is called contingency theory. Now, with the contingency theory, this actually emphasized that from different variables in specific settings that determine the style of leadership. So your leadership will be determined differently on a different situation. So you may approach your leadership differently from one situation to the other. Okay, this is what we're calling contingency theory. Okay, that leadership provide different leadership styles on different situations. Now, we also, next slide here talks about Mr. Hodgkins and White believe that the best form of leadership is the one that finds the perfect balance between behavioral needs and context. Good leaders not only pose the right qualities, but they're also able to evaluate the needs of the followers and the situation at hand. So, in summary, the contingency theory suggests that the great leadership is a combination of many key variables. So remember, each situation varies, even though the situation actually may have same or similar characteristics, but even the timing itself might be different. And this is where, as a leader, you need to make sure, should I be using contingency theory or not? And most likely, I personally have used contingency theory majority of the time. Situational theory talks about, with similar, it's very similar to contingency, but with similar situations, and you're applying your same leadership strategies on those similar situations. And that's what it's talking about. So, and as it states here, that also proposes that no one leadership style supersedes others, as its same struggles that the theory applies, that leadership depends on the situation at hand. Put simply, leaders should always correspond their leadership to the respective situation by assessing certain variables such as type of the task, nature of the followers, and more. So, making sure that when you do implement a leadership strategy, making sure that you study the situation and making sure what if you had that same similar situation before, and can you apply the same leadership strategy, or is because of the timing you're applying a new one, or you have to apply a new leadership strategy. The next slide talks about the situational theories. So this talks about the extent the behavioral concept, the effectiveness of different leadership styles depending on the situation. Okay. So leadership style is most effective when it flexes to the situation or employees involved. So basically, what this slide really wants to impose, that situation theory really will extend on the situation itself, but extends also to the behavioral concept itself. Okay, and this will lead to the effectiveness of the different leaderships depending on the styles, and obviously, and that will also relate back to the behavior itself. And you'll see here the next slide. So if you look at this slide here, and this is slide number 12, this is a very important slide. I want to actually sort of emphasize a couple of things about this slide here. Now, really, just want to pay a bit of concentration. This slide relates to the Hersey Blanchard situation leadership, which is also known as SL2, which is the new version of this situation leadership style. And it relates on 4 different situations. Now you'll see the x-axis talks about the task behavior, and this relates to being very high or very low. Okay, so if your task behavior, let's talk about being very, very high, okay, which means that team cannot make decisions for themselves, okay. They want you as the leader to make decisions, okay. They want your direction, okay. Maybe because they have a, very strict deadlines and they're just unsure which strategy to take, or they maybe still fresh employees. They want support from you as the leader, okay. Now, very low, okay, task behavior is that the team can make their own decisions. That's what it's taking about. They can make their own decisions by themselves. They're very experienced. They know the task quite well. They know they're fully aware of the situation. They're very senior and they're very seasoned, usually employees at the low task level. And this is actually the x-axis we're talking about. In relation to the y-axis, this talks about the relationship behavior, and this, which is basically also known as a supportive behavior. Okay, now when it's actually high, when you have very high relationship behavior or very high supportive behavior, it means that the leader provides high support to perform their job. Okay, now it means that these people, employees, stakeholders, are unexperienced in their job. They're not experienced, and they need support in that perspective. So leader provide high support to perform the job. Um, so that's where the high is. Low is that leaders provide very little support. These are very experienced, again, people. So this relation to more behavioral or motivation, with the task itself, which is the x-axis, relates to the experience. So let me recap again. So your x-axis is your task behavior, which is relates to the task, the expertise, etc. How much knowledge do they know about the task itself? It could be a software, it could be a technical knowledge, whatever it may be. Where your y-axis relates to your relationship behavior, talks about their motivation, their self-esteem, etc., etc. Okay, so if it's very, very high, then the leader needs to provide a lot of support. They need to motivate them a lot. Now, this is a really important graph because it determines which strategy that leader is going to take part of the behavioral. So if we talk about one, okay, one's talking about telling or directing, as it's known in the new version, SL2. So what do you mean directing? Well, because you got very high task behavior, but very low relationship behavior. So because of these 2 reasons, so what did we say? So task behavior, when it's very high, it means the team cannot make decisions because they're very unexperienced. They still don't know the task that well. Okay. With a low relationship, it means that basically, that they're really motivated. They want to learn, but they're not experiencing the task itself. So for that, you are directing them. You'll be using the strategy of directing these employees or stakeholders, and telling them, providing specific instruction. You're keeping a close eye on them, making sure they're meeting performances, making sure they're meeting the goals. So it's a little bit more of a micromanagement in that aspect, because they're very unexperienced and comes with the task. Now, two, that's a strategy where you as a leader actually are coaching them or selling, but the new version relates to coaching. Okay, so the new version, which is SL2, relates to coaching. Now, what do you mean by coaching? Because you got very high, okay, uh, you know, task behavior, and also very high in relation to relationship behavior, you will need to coach them and explain the decisions, okay, and provide opportunity for clarification. So one is you direct order. You do A, B, C. That's it. No questions. Okay. Where two, you actually coaching them. You're getting some bit of feedback. You're giving them a bit of opportunity for clarification, etc. But you coaching them in that aspect as well. Okay. So this is where two comes into, and then we're going to clarify a little bit more on details on the next slides. Okay, for further clarification. Three is you supporting your employees, okay? When it's very low task behavior, which they're very experienced, okay? They're very experienced in the task and know how to use the software very, very well. However, these employees are not motivated. Their behavior is very, very, very low, okay? Um, so what you should need to do is you need to be supportive. You need to motivate them, share ideas, facilitate decision making, etc., etc. And the fourth, which is the last strategy, is basically delegating, and has both names, either being the old model or the new model. It's where you actually delegating the uh, the actually the employees a task. So because they're so experienced, they're very, very senior, they know the task very well, and bang, they're also very motivated. So you got best of the best. So those are very motivated people, employees or stakeholders, and they are very experienced in that task that you've told them to do or they're going about to do. So you as a leader, what you're going to do is you're going to go, look, this is the goal. Okay, I want you to achieve it, and you have full control. You decide exactly how you're going to do this. So you basically giving them basically full flexibility on whatever decisions they want to make, as long as they actually achieve the goal itself. Okay, and that is the best really strategy. I mean, if you have employees who are very senior, very experienced, and they're very highly motivated, this is what you really need. Okay, this is the best of the best. The next slide, slide number 13, talks a little bit more of these four. So we spoke about directing. So if you are selecting directing strategy, this is basically leadership is called autocratic leader, okay, such as a CEO giving direct orders, okay. So you as an autocratic leader, you will be basically giving them direct orders, A, B, and C. Just do that, no feedback. I just want you to do that, okay? So the leader, you will be making all decisions without consulting any of your team, okay? So because as we know, if we go back to the graph, which is on slide number 12, you can see that from directing that, they have a very high task behavior, which they're very unexperienced, and also a very low relationship behavior, even though they're very motivated, but because they're unexperienced in the task, you actually tell them exactly what to do. But because they're actually motivated, they will do that. Now, the next one, which is two, the S just basically is the letter that's been, or strategy especially been utilized for the new model, which is as we spoke, the new model is new version SL2. So S2, or the strategy number 2, is actually the coaching, which is democratic leadership. Okay, and an example of that is actually a sport coaches. Okay, this is a leader is more receptive to input and feedback from the team in comparison to S1. They, as the leader, you sell the ideas and plan to the team to obtain the cooperation. So you basically tell them what to do, you're coaching them, because again, going back to the graph, we already know that, because they also, have a very weak, experience, or they can't do the task. However, they have a very also, uh, you know, uh, low motivation. So you regularly coaching them and making sure they understand they need that support as a coach. But the difference between S1 and S2 is that with S2 you're able to perceive and get a bit more feedback from the team itself. Now, strategy 3, which is a supporting. This is where you, as the leader, it's like very similar to Steve Jobs, have the equal relationship with your team. Okay, where you are basically asking their feedback. What's your feedback on this strategy? What decision would you make in here, etc., etc. So you're actually really asking the team on the feedback. Okay, so you're supporting them and making sure that they are uh, you know giving the right answers, or you can give a bit of direction as well. Okay, and because 3 has a very low task behavior, so they're very, very experienced senior employees, but they have a very high relationship behavior, which means they're not as motivated. And because it's not motivated, you as a leader uh, you know want to be more of an active listener. You're trying to motivate them, get them involved, and when they actually state a strategy and they actually get involved, they actually tend to be more motivated. Yeah, it was our idea, we want to make sure it succeed, we want to make sure that it's going to work, because it was our plan, it was our idea. So this is a strategy where S3 is coming from supporting. And the last one is actually delegating, which is basically, it's called lazy for leadership. And this is another strategy where very, very common one. I've really used this one, where the leader provides minimal directions and guidance, but a very clear, goal, or a vision where these employees need to achieve. Okay, so as long as you give that to your team, and then you basically give the freedom to that team to do whatever they want to do, as long as they actually achieve that goal. Okay, so this is really important. So leaders provide the vision, team makes all the required decision to achieve that vision or goal itself. Okay, so this is S4. Okay, now the next slide, in relation to the levels of employee development. Now, obviously, where you have your number one, these are your very enthusiastic employees, as we spoke about. But the beginners, they're very, green, as we call them. Okay, they may have 1 year experience or 2 years experience, and they're just learning. Okay, so their competence in relation to the tasks, okay, is very low. Okay, but they're very high committed. They're very motivated. So the lack of experience, but are confident and motivated. Okay, that's basically 1, which is what we've been talking about in the last 2 slides. Now, 2, okay, talks about the disillusioned learner, where they have some experience, but they have low confidence or motivation. Okay, and they have some experience. So they have some experience, but low confidence and low motivations. Okay, and for that, obviously, you provide the support. 3, this is basically the cable but caution performer. So this is where these employees have high experience, but they have some issues in relation to confidence and low motivation. Okay, so again, if you look at number 3 again, this is where you'll be supporting them, but you'll be trying to get as much feedback from your employees or the team to provide that support. Okay, and then 4, which is the best of the best, self-reliant achievers. These are basically high competent, they're very, very well trained, they're very senior employees, they know the task inside out, and they have a very high confidence and they're very high motivated. Okay, now Development levels change over time and are task specific. Now, keep in mind that very crucial point, and this could be part of your exam question or your assignment, is that what strategy would you use in a particular situation that you've been given? Is that you may, for example, apply D4 because you have a very senior employees and very highly motivated at one particular time. It's the beginning of the year. They had a beautiful break, and and they're very highly motivated, and they're really hungry for work. But mid-year, the same team, okay, they're still high experienced, okay, but however, they're not as motivated, okay. So they may fall into D3, okay. Um, so in that case, you need to making sure that sometimes with timing, these employees you need to apply a different strategy, okay, because again, it comes with experience. Some of your employees are very good in certain tasks, okay. Now we implemented a new software. Now, these great expertise senior employees with this new software, they're not going to be as good as the older one. So therefore, their experience is going to be from a D2. So they have some experience, but because also they're not really able to use it well, the confidence is low. Oh, because it's taken us too long, we're still learning, etc. So even though they used to be D4 with your previous software, okay, they were amazing, but because you implemented a new software because you require for change, okay, now they became from a 4 to a 2, okay. So 2 is basically they have some experience because obviously they still learning the software, and the confidence is low because it's they're taking so long, and they're not as motivated as before, okay. So this is a crucial point. That doesn't mean that employee or that team is a D4 is going to be a 4 forever. It's depending on the situation, on the task, and it's depending on time, okay. And all of us as humans will fluctuate, especially with emotions and confidence. Sometimes we are very, very high, sometimes something affects us, we come low again, etc. So, and this is very important for you as a leader to detect that, from which team are going through a bit of hardship, which particular employee is struggling with certain tasks, which team is losing motivation, and which employee is not confident. It's your duty as the leader to determine that and making sure that you note that and make sure that you have a plan for those individuals or for that team. Okay, so keep that in mind. The next slide, which is slide number 15, this is an example. So you're appointed to manage a new team working on a new project. Okay, this is a brand new project. Okay, you categorize them as D1, which is category number 1. This means you use directing leadership style initially. Okay, note, to adapt leadership style is based on the situation at the specific time. Keep in mind, situation will change over time. So therefore, later on, you realize the team become very skilled because you've been using the software quite often, okay, and they become really good, but unfamiliar with the type of project. So you assess the team as being a D3, okay. So therefore, you change from a D1 to a D3. So you adopt the supporting style of leadership after that time with this scenario. So you can see how in this example, initially it was a D1 or strategy number 1 or strategy number 1, and it goes into D3. Okay. The next strategy or theory that I would like to talk about is called behavioral theory. This behavioral theory is actually focuses on the specific behaviors and action of leaders rather than their traits or characteristics. So the theory suggests that effective of leadership is a result of many learned skills. So for you to have a behavioral theory, it comes back how much experience do you have in that particular task, and by you having these experience may also impact on the behavior itself. Okay. The next slide, slide number 17, which relates again to behavioral theory. The individuals need 3 primary skills to lead the followers. One is technical, which is the hard technical skill. Then you got your human, okay, which is emotional, and conceptual skills. So technical skills refers to leadership's knowledge of the process or techniques. Human skills means that one's able to interact with other individuals, okay, through obviously from the emotional perspective. And while conceptual skills enable the leader to come up with ideas for running the organization or society smoothly. So really for you as a leader to conduct and ensure that you have this behavioral theory, again, it relies on 3 main items. One is the technical skills and relates to human skills, and the one is your conceptual skills, which is how you're going to run the whole organization as a whole. Okay. So behavioral school, that's where the leaders focus the action on the employee and on the job itself. So this is where you really need to have 2 different focus. So as you can see on the blue section, employee-centered behavior, known as consideration, focus on the social and emotional needs of the individuals or the group members. Okay, and the second is job-oriented behavior, known as the initiating structure, which focus on the task goals, okay, which address the employee's needs, only to the extent that this improves task results itself. Okay, so these are the 2. And then you got your next slide, it's talking about the 2 dimensions. You got your job-centered and employees-centered behavior. And this is basically the next graph really relates back and sums up what is that. So if you have a look here to this particular graph, you'll see now you got your x-axis, you have your concern for production or the task, okay? So where very high, 9 is a great deal, 1 is very little, okay? So if you have a 9, you have a major concerns for production. And then you've got your y-axis where you have concern for the people itself. 9 is a great deal and 1 is very little. Now, let's talk about the best of the best here, okay? So if you have the concern for production, okay, is a 9, which is a great deal, and then you also have the concern for the people as a 9, then you actually, what we have is a team leader. Okay, so you actually have a team leader perspective in comparison to a 1 for the concern for production and a 1 concern for people. You have what we call a manager that require to conduct a major improvements. Okay, and then you obviously got, a very high in concern for people, which is a 9, and a very low concern for production, and then what we call here is a country club manager. Okay, now let's go to our next graph, which is outlines a little bit more better. Use beautiful colors as well, but you'll see here it talks about the numbers. So you'll see that if you look at the team manager, it's a 9 and a 9. Okay, where if you have a very high concern for the task, which is a 9, however, and you have a 1 for the concern of the relationship, okay, for the people or your stakeholders, then you actually have what we call an authority compliance management strategy that you need to apply. So these again talks about the different strategies for you to actually apply for your employees based on the concern of the task and based on the concern of the relationship. Okay, now in relation for you as the leader, now what strategies would you use to influence your team? How can you influence them? Okay, now what you can do to influence them, one strategy is actually to make it create formally through a title or position like documentation, such as policies, like a legal document itself, where you make it very formal that, for you to if you achieve this target, you'll get an extra amount of pay rise, as an example, or you'll get an extra free, you get an extra week, 1 week off from work, as an example. You can also reward them financially, and I've found from experience, when you reward uh, employees as self-recognition, as an example, that you will be the employee of the month, and you put their photo on the website, and you put the photo in your office, and so on. That they're really well recognized. You might have a major meeting at the company's boardroom, and you take them out, and you let them know that they've been well recognized throughout the company itself. You can give them a small gift, or you can give them a trophy, as an example. So self-recognition rewards plays miles from experience. The other thing that also, as a reward, and I'm thinking from the Middle East perspective, plays a stronger perspective from reward-wise, is actually either financial rewards, or even holiday rewards. I noticed that people in the Middle East love holidays. So if you give them, for example, free accommodation at a five-star hotel, or free flights, as an example, that is a financial reward for them, that they'll take. Okay, look, I've worked really hard. You go back to your family, and I've been rewarded with free air tickets from here to London, from Dubai to London and back. That's very rewarding. Or maybe free accommodation for a week. So it's depending, but I've noticed this is a far better strategy also here in the Middle East. Now, expert. Now, you can also give influence by stating that person, hold on, you become an expert in this particular matter, or in this particular task. You recognize him as the leader in that particular area. Okay, so that also is actually a recognition for their expertise. Reverence, which is created by the force of the leader's personalities. Now, again, you could basically go back and ensure that you use your personality and influence them through emotions. Okay, that is also very important. And the last one is cohesive, which is created when the leader has the power to punish non-followers. And this is a very harsh one, where I've seen leaders will punish, or using the cohesive perspective to influence individuals, such if you do not achieve this goal, your pay will be cut in half, or you're not going to be going on holiday for this month, or you will not be given this, or you might be terminated, as an example. It's a very harsh way, but again, I've seen this used here in the Middle East, and it's a strategy that can be used. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, a couple of tools that you can use to build trust with your employees or your stakeholders. Very important is you have common values. Now, remember, you will be sometimes having formal and informal meetings with your employees or your stakeholders, and you may have certain values that you believe in together. You like both love golf, or certain sport, or certain politician, or certain subject. So there's certain things that you talk about, certain values that you really connect together with them. So either being from values or interest. Okay. Now, in relation to building trust, is we're speaking about, you got to be transparent. Okay, to build trust, you got to be very clear to build trust, and making sure that you have a very clear communication, and making sure you do what you say. So this is very, very important when you're actually building trust. And when you're also building trust, is that you are looked always as an example. So your actions speaks 1,000 words. So for me as an employee, for me to trust you, I gotta making sure I'll be looking at your actions, and how you're gonna handle certain things, and are you actually doing what you say? Okay. or you contradict everything what you say. You expect us to do it, but you don't. You are the exceptional, okay, of mankind, okay. And sometimes that happen, and I've seen that happen, unfortunately. Okay. Now, in relation to emotional intelligence, um, now very important strategies to really overcome that is that you need to understand your employees, and that comes with experience. I mean, if you've just been hired as a CEO or a general manager, or a vice president, and you expect how people react in certain things, that's impossible. Okay. And usually the way that I overcome that when I commence with any organization, I would, uh, you know, get, I'll obviously read folios or portfolios of them, and I also would have, meetings, know them a bit more, either being in a formal meetings or informal meetings, and get them to know them, what they're like, etc., 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 and also ask people about them. Okay, and then you might get different perspective. Oh yeah, he's a very good person. He's one of the experienced people here. And then you might get views. Oh no, he lies a lot. He always likes to finish work early, etc., etc., etc. So all these perspectives and feedbacks is crucial, and you should be taking notes. I actually have files for employees, and I have notes for myself, and that way you can keep track on these individuals, and then you can actually keep track also on groups, departments, and how they operate, because certain departments, they have different emotions when you put two people together. Certain people don't like working together and causing issues, even though they're both expert in the field, but they clash, work together well. So you need to understand that, and you need to have a strategy for that. Either let one go, or have different offices for them, or whatever it may be. That you need to have a strategy in making sure that they actually comply with it, and ensure that respect is adhered at all times. Now, in relation to for emotional intelligence, is that you as an individual, as a leader, truly need to understand the emotions aspect of it. Okay, you need to control your own emotions very well, and not to lose it, because the minute that you lose your emotions, you be looked down upon, and that you as the leader, taken as the example, may not longer taken as an example. Okay. Um, Now, again, very important that when it says here, the last item, regulate emotion. So, detaching from emotions when they get in the way. Again, that comes back to when you have conflicts with certain individuals or certain managers, especially when you're dealing with C-level management. So for example, if you're the CEO of a company, and you're dealing and you have a conflict with a general manager, um, or the chief financial officer, that's a concern. These are very senior people. You can't say, what, I'm going to sack you, without no legit reason. Okay, so you have to making sure that you put your emotions and you shift them on a side, and making sure that you focus on the issue and the concern, especially when it comes to C-level conflicts. And it will happen, especially if you're in a C-level position, either if you're any C-level, either from a senior management or a general management or vice president or CEO, or whatever it may be, and you're having conflicts with other C-level members. You need to deal with this without any emotions. Okay, and it's all logic and facts. Again, we continue with emotional intelligence. Now, it's very important that you as always at self-awareness. Okay, now you always need to be aware of your emotions. Sometimes we have what we call bad days. You came to work and you had a car accident, okay, or you're going through some bad disputes at home with the wife or with the husband or whatever it may be. What do you do? Okay, you're going to take those emotions at work, and you're going to have an argument with all your employees because you're in a bad mood. You don't do that. So what you need to do is you got to be very well self-aware of your emotions and go, look, hold on, I know I'm in a really bad mood today. I had a bad accident. I had a fight with the wife. My kids are not listening to me, and so on and so on. All these things are happening. I got the chairman on my back because we're not meeting KPI. All these emotions are happening, but you're just making sure that you're fully self-aware of these emotions. And go, hold on, I need to just take those and throw it. And sometimes I actually had to literally use the physical impact where I would actually crumble a piece of paper and go, this is my emotion that I'm going through today. I'm going through a really bad day. And this is the bin, bang, okay? That's it. No more emotion today. I'm focusing on a workload. And sometimes, as you know, if you heard of the statement that when you write something, it really sticks here. That to me sometimes physically, because I've done it physically, I've just as if I've chucked my emotions in the bin, and to me that worked, and I would just actually focus on the logic throughout the day itself, and not having my emotions get involved. And making sure that I am always regularly motivated, and making sure that I have that positive energy, and making sure that I'm passing that motivation and positive energy to the others. Okay, that is all part of emotional intelligence. Okay, making sure that I have empathy. Okay, which is part of emotional intelligence, and respect each other. All employees, doesn't matter of the religion or race or color, etc. And making sure that I have the social skills, being able to create connections, and rapport with others, so that way that I'm not distancing myself, that I'm regularly meeting Mr. A, and because I have good interests, and he likes golf and tennis like I do, but I'm not going to distance myself from Mr. B and Mrs. C because I don't like golf and tennis, as an example. So social skills is very important, and treating everybody equally, especially we had a lot of senior managers where they will say, for example, invite individuals for lunch or coffee, or etc., and not the others. That comes back to social skills. You can't do that, because the word will go around. Well, how come you invited him for lunch and you didn't invite me? Do you favor him and not me? Is this what it's all about now? And it creates a lot of negative, and it creates that, again, the emotional intelligence works up, okay, and you're basically building a barrier between yourself and employees. So keep that in mind. Now, in relation to motivation, now this is again, as a leader, you need to have that ongoing, and ongoing, non-stop. So understanding why people behave the way they do help leaders influence behavior by appealing to the right needs in the right way. Okay, so making sure, for example, I know certain people tick when I actually motivate them with money, and I know other people tick when I motivate them with recognition. Now I need to play on that card. I need to make sure what ticks that particular employee, what ticks that particular team. And for example, we have a financial team, and they love holidays, for example. So we take them in turns. Who's going to go where, and sort of which timing they're going to take the holidays, etc. So, and we use it as a motivation. Okay, so it's very important that you know your employees and what they're like and how you can actually motivate them. So that's crucial, because remember that we're all unique, and we like things differently. Okay, again, I come personally from when I was actually in management, uh, I actually overtook recognition over financial reward, for example. So if my CEO at the time said to me, what would you prefer? Would you prefer financial reward that would motivate you, or would you prefer recognition to be the employee of the month? I would say no, employee of the month. That was my personal perspective. And my colleague had the completely opposite perspective. So again, what is right, what's wrong? Nothing is right, nothing is wrong. It comes back to personality. We're all different, and we have all different needs. Now, and this is where it comes back to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is actually in slide 27, and you'll see our famous pyramid. Okay, obviously starting with the basics that we all need, our basic needs, such as air, food, drink, shelter, or we need to sleep, and so on and so on. Okay, this is your basic needs that we tend to have. Then it goes after that is actually safety and security. Then it goes after that belonging and love. Um, then after that is your esteem and self and others. And the last one is basically self-actualization, which is basically you recognize yourself and you actually help others. Now, you'll see on my right hand side on the job, okay, when it comes to safety and security, is that working condition, employment security, pay, and benefits make a big deal. So, for me as an employee, okay, I'm talking about just an employee now. Now, to feel safe and secure at my workplace, I got to making sure that I have a good working condition. So making sure that I'm not working next to pollution area. I open the windows and I have a lot of pollution coming in. That's okay. That's not acceptable. Um, that I'm going to making sure that I have a job for the following year. If I can feel that the company going through liquidation, or if the company is not doing well, that makes a huge security issue. Okay, so that's very important. Now, pay. Now, I got to making sure that that if I'm getting paid monthly, I got to making sure is that company going to be able to pay me monthly. I was told that they're struggling financially. Wow. Okay. Well, what happened to that? Pay me the next month. How I'm going to pay my bills? How I'm going to pay the kids' schools? I'm going to do shopping and so on and so on. And obviously benefits. If there's any benefits such as insurance and other benefits that you may be getting paid from your company. Now, the next level up is actually relating to your belonging and love. Now, you'll see on the job, okay, work groups, clients, co-workers, and supervisors. Now, very important this aspect that how is people treating me, okay? Is because of my religion, everybody's taking it, they don't like to talk to me because of my color. They're taking, a different perspective against me because whatever it may be. Okay, so the stronger the relationship with my work colleagues, and there's a lot of support from my superiors. That creates that belonging and love. I love going to work. Why? Because it's a beautiful culture. Everybody is lovey-dovey, as they say, and um, we get a lot of statements that you can't have a workplace with lovey-dovey in a sense that you know uh, there'll always be obstacles, someone that you may not like. But I have been in companies where employees are very respectful, even though there's actually a conflict, but the conflict is actually outlined in a very professional manner. It's not just an abusive conflict, but it's a logical conflict, and it's for the purpose of the organization itself, and it's done in a very respectful way. So this is very important. How your co-workers treating you. When you're struggling, are you getting the support from your superiors? Are you getting support from your co-workers? Or they're saying, or everybody's just not helping you. They're just waiting for you to drown, and then you can get told off from the manager, and then they can just laugh off, and they can and they're happy about that. Okay, yes, you have co-workers who do that, and you've got co-workers who are very, very helpful. And depending on the culture of the organization, you'll see a lot of the culture of the organization where they're trying to promote that the co-workers help one another. If one is struggling, you are part of the team. We'll lift you up and we'll help you, rather than seeing doing bad or getting told off. Okay, so this is where belonging and love. Okay, this is what I call really a team effort. This is where the bread and butter really lies. And I know that, and talking from experience, that I have left organization because the culture itself, I did not feel the belonging and love there. I felt there was a lot of, uh, you know, challenges, and everybody was challenging each other, and there was no support, and I didn't like the culture. So I personally made the change. The next one talks about esteem and self-esteem and others. So this is basically where how you're going to improve yourself. So the organization is helping you to always to be better, to upskill yourself through training and education, um, and, making sure it's recognizing, when you do really well and that you're meeting your KPIs, you're meeting your, and you're achieving your goals, that there's recognition, people, saying, yes, we can see the hard work that you're putting into it. And this is very important for employees. People want to making sure that they actually recognize for the hard work. If I achieve my KPIs, I want to be recognized. This person has achieved it. So this is very important. And if I'm lacking a certain skill, I want the support that I will provide you training, will provide you the skills or resources that you require to making sure that you achieve these goals. So don't expect me to swim in the ocean, and you know that I can't swim, and you just go, yeah, well, do the best you can. So you give me the resources, okay? The other thing is also part of self-esteem is actually promotion, promoting that person, okay? Give him more responsibilities or give her more responsibilities. So obviously by delegation and so on and so on from the leader. And the last one is self-actualization, which is basically opportunities of growth development, problem solving, and being able to provide creative ideas, etc. This is where basically really the leadership comes into it, the CEOs, etc., where you be able to, or sometimes it doesn't have to be all CEOs, but where I remember that certain individuals were given that opportunity where they said, look, we're going to give you a task of the project. You show me how you're going to do your problem solving. You've got full control on this project. It's your project. You give me your results and making sure that you achieve the goals. So this is all talking about on the job. Now, what about off the job? Now, in relation to safety and security, now keep in mind that sometimes if the country itself is going through a war, or what we're going through now is, for example, as a coronavirus, which affects safety. Okay, another one with relation to belonging and love. Now, maybe very important that you have a good relationship at home, or there's no issues with your family members or your wife or your husband, etc. Self-esteem in relation to approval of family and friends, community. Okay, so there you maybe conduct community work, and you will very well recognized there. Okay, and the last one that you will probably provide extra growth or personal growth, and become maybe expert in a certain field or subject by conducting your PhD or your doctorate in a certain subject, or specializing in a certain subject in religion or whatever it may be. So these are the items that you can actually specialize in, and in that way you're actually helping others. So when you reach right to the peak of the pyramid itself, this is where the peak where you basically able to help others just beside yourself. This is where you actually at that peak. So this is a self-actualization, where you're really at the top of the top, and you're actually really trying to, what, it's not about me anymore, it's about the others. And it takes a lot to get there. Now, our next slide is slide number 28. And this is called Herzberg's motivation hygiene theory. Now, it talks about for you to achieve motivation, it relies on two things. It relies, one, on extrinsic hygiene factors such as your how much pay you're getting, your working condition, your job security, your supervision, your co-workers, how they're treating you. Plus, it relates to your intrinsic motivation factor, which is basically if you've been recognized, your personal growth, and your achievement. So that plus that will give that the ultimate motivation. So making sure that you're working both factors, not just one or the other. Again, a lot of the leaders will work on the intrinsic motivation factor, which is in relation to recognition and achievement. Are we going to make sure that he recognizes this particular employee, and we should actually make it, and he should be or should be motivated. But in fact, there's other things that employees do worry about, because you can give them recognition, but the working condition is really bad. Okay, their co-workers is giving them hell at work. The job security is not good. Okay, as an example, the pay is not good, and so on and so on. Okay, so the next slide, which is slide number 29, talks about McLuhan's 3 needs theory. So every employee needs to have the 3 needs, which is achievement, affiliation, and power. So let's talk about each one. So the achievement drives people to tackle work that will produce meaningful results. Okay, so I achieved my KPIs. I achieved my goals. Okay, so, and this was obviously set by the leader itself. The second one is being affiliated with something. Okay, so this drives people to make social connection and be part of a group. So I am part of Apple. I am part of Microsoft. Okay, wow, this is a big thing. Okay, so you are part of this big brand, big name. And the third need is basically the power, and this drives people to control or exert influence over others. So as an example, a leader delegates high visibility tasks that an employee can control and direct. So by you actually giving tasks to individuals and delegating tasks, when I remember my CEO going back 15 years ago, and he provided me a task that I wasn't expecting, I was honored. That was like, wow, do you really trust me I can do this? Do you think that I'm capable of taking this task? That is massive. That is massive. That for him to give me that power, and for him to trust me with that decisions that I'm gonna make, that was overwhelming for me at that time. So do not underestimate that, for sure. The next theory that we're going to talk about is self-determination theory, which is on slide number 30. People have inherent desire to grow. Okay, we all do. We don't want to be managers. When I was actually a manager, I wanted to be a senior manager. When I became a senior manager, I wanted to be a general manager. When I became a general manager, I wanted to be a CEO. So you constantly want to grow. You want to be better and better and better. That's just human nature, usually, or the majority of the cases. So to have self-determination, it relies on 4 aspects. So you need to have competence. So desire to master a task. So you need to be an expert on that task. So if you want to be a general manager, you need to have a very good strategic management skills, people skills, etc. So you need to master that skill itself. Okay. The second one is actually experience to interact and be part of a group. Okay. Now, very important, that relates back to emotions, intelligence, and it relates to communication skills. It's for you to interact and be part of a group, and the group to like you. You need to understand. You need to have a certain give and take. Okay, and emotional intelligence plays a big role in that. Autonomy, the need to control one's life in order to fulfill one's desire. So you need to control your life in order to fulfill one desire. So that's what relating back to purpose. You need to do something that has a larger social purpose. So you're doing this to achieve the vision of the organization. You're doing this to making sure that we achieve to be one of the best companies in the UAE, as an example. Okay. Okay, so that's that. Now, the next one is actually ethics in the workplace. Now, how do we achieve a good ethics in the workplace? Well, one main perspective is basically, you need to have transparency. Okay, that's very important aspects. Then the next one is actually honesty. Okay, you also need to respect confidentiality. If there's private information about individuals in relation to certain information, you need to be confidential about that. Okay, and the fourth, protecting the rights of others. So, which is relating back to confidentiality, but it's protecting the rights in relation to certain aspects. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, now the next slide talks a little bit more about each one. Transparency, okay, supports trust in relationship with stakeholders. Okay, it discloses details about dealing, transaction, and processes. Okay, so it doesn't hide private information. Honesty reflects a commitment to truthfulness and fairness. Okay, so don't treat one person over the other, or treat a particular group better than other. Avoid conflicts of interest, okay, which is part of honesty. And yeah, so that's what it comes back to. And the third, which is confidentiality, this is really important, which agrees to the share or make public personal information, respects of priority information, consistent with legal requirements and best practices. And the fourth, protecting the rights of others, which aims for conduct that respects others safely and well-being, dignity and privacy. Okay, so these are the four. What about code of conduct? Now, each organization that I actually worked with, we actually have a code of conduct, which is rules that all employees need to adhere with. And one of them, for example, you need to respect all, regardless of the color, religion, race, etc., etc. Code of conduct needs to be adhered to, not just a documentation. So it is a document of rules that employees need to conduct, and it basically helps to formulate that culture for the organization itself. Okay. Now, ethical behavior really, if you can see the next slide on slide number 34, is basically, it starts from the top here, recognize ethical situation as they arise. So if you might have certain ethical information in place, and you know that it's rising, people don't respecting each other for certain reasons, whatever it may be, you need to take that on, at the start. Don't let it go and get big and big and big. Making sure that you see who's the individuals or the groups who's responsible for that. You need to take serious actions. Use the legal terms either from the code of conduct or the contracts. Okay, explain to them the consequences. Okay, for that. Because it is a serious matter. Because remember, you're trying to build a culture, and if these individuals are not following that, it may create a huge negative impact to the employees. So you need to treat that at early stages rather than later stages, because it's like a balloon. That when you leave it, it just grows bigger and bigger and bigger, and the impact of it when you blow a balloon is much larger. So make sure that you treat that initially, making sure that individuals are fully aware of it. If they're not taking it seriously, take serious actions, and even if it causes determination, if that is the case, if that is the result that you need to go to, then absolutely. But making sure that ethics is a priority, and making sure that it will be part of the culture that everybody that needs to adhere to. And that leads us to our last slides, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll talk through our third topic our next session. Thank you and take care.